What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Accelerate Your Life podcast. As always, I'm your host, Mallory Marks, and we are joined by one of our clients today, Aneta. I am going to butcher your last name. I should have asked this before we started, but I'm going to let you say it. Aneta I have Stefaniak?
Stefaniak.
Stefaniak. Okay, yeah, I was not close. But Aneta, welcome to the pod. How are you?
Good. Happy to be here.
Hey, we're so excited to have you here. I knew this was going to be a great episode. I figured you would be a perfect guest. And just to give everybody a little sneak peek of kind of what we'll be focusing on today, Aneta has been a client with us for 2.5 years.
I think so.
Yeah, crazy. And for a good like 9 months at least of that, you were pregnant and the very first 9 months. So that's going to be kind of a big focus is what it's like to start your health and fitness journey, and or start coaching too, specifically like during a time when I think a lot of people don't think it makes sense. But I know you're a testament of how much it truly made sense for you. So we're definitely going to dive into that. But before we do, one thing I always like to ask everybody who comes onto the pod is it's unrelated, so it's just whatever kind of first comes to your mind, but what is one thing that you love about life right now?
Um, just my daughter
Love that.
being a
I mean,
mom.
literally, yeah. I mean, that had to be the answer, of course. What's her name?
Jane.
Jade or Jane?
Jane.
Yeah,
Jane.
with an N.
N-E.
I
Yeah.
love that. It's such
Yes.
a, oh, I love that. It's like, I feel like that's one of those names that like was so common and now isn't anymore. And it's just
Yeah.
so pretty. And like, yeah, it's like a classic name. I love that.
So there is a whole story to the name.
There is it like a family name?
Uh, Sort of. So as you know, we're from Poland. So, me and my husband had this deal that if it's a girl, he gets to name her. If it's a boy, I get to name
Okay.
him. It's a girl. So of course my husband won. And he wanted to use his grandma name,
Okay.
but it's a Polish name, and our child already has our last name, and as
Yeah.
you saw, that's not the easiest. So we wanted to avoid giving her a very Polish name. So we Googled an English equivalent,
It was Jane.
and it was Jane. One of the equivalents was
Okay.
Jane. So I love that name, and I was like,
I
okay,
love
that's
it.
that.
It's simple and beautiful. What is the name in Polish that you were trying to get?
Janina.
Janina. Okay, Jane, Janina. It's close,
Yeah.
kind of. I don't know if you knew this. My mom's dad was very Polish, so I'm Polish, but my name does not reflect it because it was the maiden name. But we've got that in common.
Yeah.
But okay, actually, one other thing I was going to ask too, because back to that note of you've been a client for 2.5 years. I know you just renewed for, was it your third time?
Yes, it was my
Okay.
third time.
Amazing.
I renewed for 8 more months,
Yay.
and the aim is to graduate at the end of eight
Yes,
months.
yes. Which that was why I wanted to bring that up is because when I said like 2.5 years, I think some people might think like I think people can either take that two ways. They're like, oh my gosh, like coaching must be awesome. She keeps staying. Or people could be like, why does someone need to keep doing that? Like, shouldn't you be learning enough to be on your own? So I wanted you to even give like a very honest answer. Like, what would you say to that? If you're like, or why do you have to keep continuing? Like, what's making you want to keep continuing and keep renewing right now?
So, my situation might be different than everyone else's. As you mentioned, I joined and found out I was pregnant. So, we went through pregnancy, then we went through postpartum, getting back to activity, etc. So I think, from my perspective, only recently I started doing what
Hmm.
I aimed doing when I joined. So that's why for me, it made sense to stay on so long. I think for someone who might not be in my situation, that time might be shorter. But I think to get the full benefits of the
Yeah.
coaching, that's what was working for me and is working for me.
Yeah. Well, I actually love that you share that because while yes, your story is definitely maybe different than some others, I think that what can just be brought out of that is the fact is like understanding that health and fitness is a journey and like reaching goals, like there's no just finish line. And that doesn't mean you need a coach forever to like continue. Like obviously, hopefully the goal is that you gain knowledge of how it all kind of works and you are able to continue that journey on your own. But I think a lot of people go into this kind of thing thinking, okay, I'm just trying to look at like X or get to X weight. And like once I do, it's done. Great. Like I just go on with my life. And that is definitely not how it works. Just even to get to goals, a lot of people don't understand that like you have to go through phases. Like maybe you have to go through a muscle building phase and that looks different than going through like a cut. And so there's maybe different phases to even get to that goal. So having somebody kind of help you learn through all those phases. But then even there, you should still always like be whether it's actually trying to change something or just taking care of yourself. It's something that's always going on. So whether it's pregnancy or not pregnancy and going through all that, I think like anyone can take away from that answer the fact that there's more to it than I think a lot of people initially come in thinking, right?
I think so. I think so. For me, it definitely um, changed perspective once I joined. EA is not the first service I used out there, and
Mm.
nothing worked before, right? Because I think none of it was educating you in a way what you should be doing with an idea that there is the common goal of you being self-sufficient
Yeah.
at some point, right? And that self-sufficient might look differently. I already asked Megan about staying on just for training after I
Yeah.
graduate, just because it's not my,
For
specialty. I
sure.
don't know what to train. Uh, so, and I joined and I saw how different it is and how, me and my coach work towards my goals.
Yeah.
And that made a world of difference. And now I feel actually like, we have a plan of me being in that 8 months in a position to graduate and take the
Yeah.
journey on my own. But who knows? Maybe in a couple of months I will be like, no, I need more. Or like in a couple of years, like, oh, I want to do something
Yeah.
crazy. Let's do it, right?
Yeah, and I didn't even honestly, I don't think I knew that you had like worked with other ones before. Maybe it's been so long since I know you and I had our first call. But I'm glad that you like see the aspect of like the education component and why we are so big on that is I do think like a lot of others out there kind of lack that aspect of and not only does that of course help set you up for yourself in the long run, but I honestly think even with a coach, it's really hard to be successful without being taught the why and the how because that's for a lot of people what even gets you to like discipline yourself to do it is when you understand why it's worth it. But I feel like I could go down that tangent. So I'm gonna stay on track and go back to my notes here. But I want to go back to you mentioning that we kind of both briefly talked about it. Okay, you signed up originally for just you had other goals, you had no idea you were pregnant, and then between so the way we do things for anybody listening is you decide to enroll in coaching, then there's a little bit of like there's about a week lag time in between that and your onboarding call because behind the scenes like we don't just randomly give you your protocols, like you are tracking your food and so we can see what your days look like, your metabolism's at, we've got an intake form, all that stuff. So anyway, about 7 days in between your enrollment and your onboarding call, and in that 7 days you found out you were pregnant. So needless to say, everything changed and we had to kind of reshuffle. I know Megan was like, all right, get change of plans here. So I want to start though, before we get into the kind of the pregnancy side of things, what was your goal originally, like your original reason for coming to EA and signing up?
So, I will be very open here. So, we have been trying for a while and it wasn't successful, right? And there were multiple reasons why it was not successful. Part of it, I think, it was my health and everything. So, I didn't feel good in my body. I knew I'm not where I should be to have a healthy pregnancy. So I was searching for solutions. I think your ad popped up on my Instagram. I started like, clicking and reaching out. And I figured like this sounds like something that can help me get into shape and uh, take care of my body before we're successful, right? The other part was just I was in a really stressful work environment. So I think switching that helped also. I think my cortisol level went
Mm,
significantly down. And I think, we were successful in that
yeah.
journey, as you mentioned, in between me signing
Yes.
up and starting my protocols.
Yeah. So that is one we definitely cannot necessarily take credit for of like the health, side of things,
Yeah.
because obviously you were already, but there have been ones like that too, where a couple months in for the same reasons, right? Like sometimes it is, our own health or stress levels even that are getting in the way of our fertility and our ability to get pregnant. So truly working on those things can make a difference. You already luckily like it had, but needless to say though, that news impacted what we're going to do. And and I applaud you for this, instead of being like, I don't want to start this, I like this isn't a good time. I think you recognize like there's no reason why I shouldn't work on being the healthiest, even if it's not oh, I want to get six pack abs. Cause like, yeah, maybe that's not going to happen now, but there's more to your health and fitness than just like the physicality, right? So how did then, I know it might have been a conversation you and Megan had together, but how did your goals change when you did find out you were pregnant, that you like the goals you wanted to accomplish with the EA?
So, one of the things was I really wanted someone who would guide me through this process. Because again, I'm not an expert on training, activity. I don't know sorry about that. My neighbors are walking their dogs, and my dogs are
No
not
worries.
happy. Uh, so, so, I, I have a professional ballroom dancing background, so it's not I was not active. I never worked out being pregnant, right? It was completely new
Right.
territory. So I think one of the goals I wanted to stay active for my pregnancy because I knew it's what's best for me, it's what's best for my baby, it's what's best for the labor itself, right?
Yeah.
So I think that was a big part why I decided to stay. And the other one is I have thyroid issues and I was
Mhm.
completely terrified that it's going to skew the whole process. I'm going to gain this like ridiculous amount of weight that I will not be able to lose. And I really partnered with Megan on keeping everything in check, right? Being
Mhm.
active during pregnancy, eating the right foods for my needs. Because you don't eat
Yeah.
uh, by two, like for two people, you eat for you and your tiny baby.
Mhm.
So, I think that there is a common misconception that you can just
Yeah.
do whatever. Um, so, just having someone knowledgeable to guide you, like, this is how much your needs increase in the first trimester, in the second trimester, in the third trimester. This is what you can do now. This is what you can no longer do as an exercises, right? All of that. I don't have that knowledge, and I
Yeah.
I was working full time, and I'm still working full time, so I definitely didn't have time to like start reading and figuring
Yeah.
out which exercises I can do, and googling that stuff and risking doing something wrong
Yeah.
was just not an option.
Yeah, I think there's so many good things to even pull out of that you just said. And on the last note, at least to start, I think that's a great point. Like even just the fact alone of being so busy and having so many things on your plate, I think for some reason, like nutrition, fitness, and whether this be because you're pregnant or you just have other goals, like for some reason people think that for this thing, like you should be able to figure it out on your own. But it's like we don't do that with fixing our car tire. We don't do that with like all these other things. It's like it's okay to outsource that, right? You have a lot of other things on your plate. It's just, getting that, just not having to worry about figuring it out on your own and for the sake of somebody being like, hey, do this. It's just one less thing you have to do. Right. But I think the other thing that I was going to mention, and I'm glad you talked about too, is I do agree. I see it a lot of the just, I can kind of have whatever I want. Like I'm pregnant, I'm going to gain weight anyway. And like, yes, that's true, but it doesn't necessarily need to be leaning into this like excess. And it's not just about the weight gain too. Like if you're kind of over consuming or having maybe not the best choices, that affects the nutrients that your baby is getting, right? So still being cognizant and wanting to make those positive food choices. I think you approached it in such a great way that I think set you up for great success during the pregnancy and after, which is kind of what I want to go into next. I think like even splitting this into two, maybe I would love for you to talk about first how you feel the continuing to train and work out, and specifically weight lift through your pregnancy helped with your actual delivery and recovery, if you do think it helped. And then maybe after that, we can talk a little bit maybe more specifically about how you feel like the nutrition had an impact.
Yeah, so I think it helped like just moving my body and training and lifting weight under guidance of someone knowledgeable that, we had the conversation like you cannot lift that heavy anymore, right? You have to switch your mindset, all of that. But I think it helped. Like, I aim for an unmedicated birth. Unfortunately, this is not how it ended up, right? Sometimes there are things beyond our control, but I was working out with the mindset that, I want an unmedicated birth, and I knew that just working out, doing all of those exercises, and Megan definitely switched closer to birth. We focused on, more like hip openings, etc.,
Mhm.
etc., because that's important.
Right.
So, we had that goal in mind. And as I mentioned, unfortunately, this is not how it ended up. But, funny thing is I had a crash C-section and, there are things you have to, after the C-section, after some time passes, there are nurses that they have to help you stand up and walk a couple of steps and back, etc. And, I was up so quickly and moving around that they were very, very surprised. And they told me, like, in the amount of time that it took us to stand me up, walk a couple of steps, walk a couple of steps back, and lie me down, sometimes it takes them that long to even like stand up the patient, right? And we were done by then. So
Yeah.
I think even that, my nurses were great and very supportive, but also surprised on how quickly I was bouncing back.
I remember that when you posted that in the chat of like my doctors can't believe like how fast I recovered from my
Yeah.
C-section. And it's like when your body has that strength from training and just it also knows, it knows how to recover. Like you're because also too like when you are training in the gym, when you are lifting weights, you are creating micro tears in muscles, and that's people hear that and they're like that sounds bad. No, that's what you're supposed to be doing, and the way that muscle builds back is it repairs those tears. And I think your body just is now used to the fact of like, obviously a C-section is quite an extreme of that, but it knows how to recover. It knows how to repair. It has a good, like, it's not new to it, right? So you've set your body up for success. And that was one of my favorite wins when you posted that in the chat, because it's such a non-scale win too, of like how much, not like just a healthy lifestyle can positively impact you. I do think that the workouts had a big part in that. Now, do you notice any difference? And maybe this is more on like the side of maybe quote unquote bouncing back after pregnancy, but what do you feel like the nutrition and kind of paying attention and dialing in there during your pregnancy did to what impact do you think it did on your recovery after that?
Yeah. So, funny thing is, I wasn't huge before pregnancy, but I was a little bit overweight. And all my family were like, how is it possible that you look skinnier while pregnant than before, right? Because what we did with Megan was so smart that was actually losing fat while taking care of my baby and me and my needs, right? So after pregnancy, when I delivered, and there's the first weight in, and you're like, oh my God, what the scale is going to show, right? It was lower
Wow.
than before getting pregnant, right? So it just show how much of what I put in through that 9 months changed my body,
Mhm.
um, and um, and just that nutrition. I had some issues with my milk supply at the beginning because when you have a crash C, your body is on a delayed
Yeah.
schedule, right? It didn't caught up that the baby's out and everything. But then, I think through right nutrition and everything, I was able to get into a little bit oversupply. I
Mhm.
was able to donate my oversupply milk to babies in need, right? And, when I was working with Megan, that was really important to me.
Yeah.
So, maybe I could have lost more weight more quickly, but I was really focused on keeping up my supply and
Totally.
everything. So Megan dialed into that, and we worked on a schedule that worked for everyone. I'm still breastfeeding, but it's incidental now more than like, not a main source of nutrition for my baby. So it's not that big of a deal at
Yeah.
that time. So it's not a focus during this cut, but before we did everything to preserve
Yeah.
that milk supply.
Yep. There's so many cool things. Like I think again, you just talked about there first the aspect of at the beginning of getting pregnant, right? And I think I want to just elaborate a little bit more on the concept of losing body fat while you're pregnant. Because I know some may hear that and be like, that why are you doing that? Like you shouldn't be focusing on that. And I want to point out that you actually, especially in the first trimester, if you are somebody who has some weight to lose, you can absolutely do that in a healthy way. As long as we're, it may not be as extreme or it may not be as fast as if you were not pregnant, but you don't actually need to be in an overconsumption of calories or in a surplus of calories in your first trimester. You can either be at maintenance. Honestly, in some cases, you can either even be at a deficit. Again, that's I think a misconception where it's easy to go into that mode of like, I'm pregnant, I can kind of eat whatever I want. It's everybody is different. So there's, people where that wouldn't be the case. Like we need to make sure, you know, if somebody is at a healthy weight or even underweight, of course, that's not going to be the place we're going to go. But if you have weight to lose, like you can do that in a healthy way. And that's exactly what you and Megan did. And we keep talking about Megan. Megan is our head assistant coach, and she is phenomenal with prepartum, pregnant and postpartum clients. And yeah, she works her magic, and there's a lot to be done. But then I think then on the other side of that spectrum, after giving birth, really focusing on keeping your milk supply, that's where a piece of the nutrition is so important. Because if you are under consuming even a little bit, like people, especially some women can be very sensitive with their milk supply, and it can, go away very quickly. So you want to make sure you're keeping a close eye on that. And yeah, it's cool to see where we're able to do that and get it to a place where you even were able to donate. So I think that's so awesome. Now, I think that since we talked a little bit, I think I know the answer to this question because I know you were already like trying to get pregnant when you did sign up for coaching, but would you, if you knew you were pregnant before the initial call, would you have sought out or signed up for coaching honestly?
100%
Okay, you would have.
yes.
Okay, you would have. So I think a lot of people wouldn't. And so yeah, what would you say to somebody who is maybe starting their health and fitness journey while trying to get pregnant or while active, like if they thought it was a waste of time, what would you say to them?
It's there are so many things you don't know that
Mhm.
will happen throughout, and just having someone with the knowledge, like, you can have food aversions, serious food aversions,
Mhm.
and having someone knowledgeable that will give you ideas how to substitute some things. Like at one point I had a huge meat aversion, right? And you need protein while you're pregnant. And so, just having someone that will guide you, like if you have food, like meat aversion, those are substitutes that will work fine for your goals, right? And just, having someone guiding you through like how to your movement. And if you're not into working out, don't worry, no one is going to give you like a crazy workout
Yeah.
routine, right? They will guide you into like, maybe walks, maybe some treadmill, maybe just simple body movements. I don't know what what the coach would do, right? But I never felt pushed outside of my comfort. I felt very well taken care of, right? And I think it's such a vulnerable time where you feel very lost, because even if you've been pregnant before and delivered, I think every pregnancy is different. But especially if you're a first time pregnant, you're in such a vulnerable place because you don't know what's normal. You don't know
Yeah.
what to
So
expect. It's
true.
not something you can prepare yourself for, right? So just having someone knowledgeable there as a partner, giving you that boost of confidence, that's amazing.
That's so true. I mean, yeah, it's the first time. Like you literally don't know, like if you'll survive it, what to do when this happens. Those first time anythings are scary. So that's a great point of, just having somebody on your team who has your best interests, both with your goals, but also can be objective too, and say like, hey, that's maybe not something we can focus on right now. That's not the healthiest for you. Like we need to prioritize this, etc. So yeah, I think that's great advice. Now I want you to take a minute to brag about yourself because I know in the last 2.5 years you have so much to brag about and you've been sharing some awesome wins in the group chat. So I want you to tell us a little bit about now. How long have you been postpartum? And tell us a little bit about the progress that you made and how you're feeling.
So I'm almost 17 months postpartum, or like 16 and a half right now. And, I had a goal in mind. My birthday, 35th birthday is coming up next month, and we have a huge trip planned, and we're going to Maldives. And I had that goal in mind to be in great shape for that, right? But of course, I still wanted to focus on, for a long time preserving supply and doing everything right. So, right now I actually weighed myself today, and I'm at the lowest since I started tracking my weight in late 2016. So
That's great.
it's late 2024, and I'm the lowest I have been since late 2016. I'm in the great shape. My husband is even in awe of how I
Heck
look.
yeah.
And I think, I have 2 weeks left till we'll leave on vacation. I feel really confident. I ordered a bunch of bikinis. I still didn't choose the one I'm keeping, but still just having that, that after a baby, I can look
Yeah.
better than I looked in many, many vacations pre-baby, right?
Heck yeah. And I want that anybody listening to this, whether you have a kid or you don't have a kid, and you're just, maybe you're in your 30s and you're one of those that are like, I'm never going to look the way I did in my 20s. Anita is here looking better, best she'd ever had, better than she did at 27. So, yeah, it is possible. You truly can get in the best shape at any time. And I'm so proud of you. And I'm so glad to hear you're feeling so confident. I'm so jealous of you going to the Maldives. That's going to be an amazing vacation. Are you bringing Jane?
Of course.
Okay, love. And is Jane's your second baby, right?
No, first.
Oh, why did I think she was your second? I don't know why I
Of
thought that.
course, I have two fur
Um,
babies
okay,
and a
yes.
kid.
Okay, okay. Do you think you guys want more?
No, I think we're
Okay.
one and done. I think
Okay,
our
love it.
family feels complete with one.
Love it. And yeah, bounce back to an incredible body and now you get to rock it for forever. But yeah, I'm so proud of you. It's been so cool to see your wins in the chat. Honestly, I think that's really all of the questions I had. And I think hearing about your journey has probably been very helpful to a lot of people listening. I think again, my biggest takeaway I wanted for this is I think it's easy for people to whether it is just kind of like throw the caution to the wind when they're pregnant because they just feel like, what's the point? Or I think it's really easy to kind of lose yourself and like you kind of especially even after having the baby, right? Like your world is now that child and that's always going to be the case, but I think like the conversation I have the most with moms and what I see with the clients that actually do come on is when they start pouring back into their cup, they are a better version of themselves and they're a better mom, they're pouring better into their kids and it's not selfish to prioritize yourself. And like I assume like do you feel like you have found that to be true?
Yes, definitely. And one thing that people out there might be afraid that you have to spend like ridiculous amount of time at the gym.
Mhm.
I don't go to the gym. I have a home gym with like
Hell yeah.
basic equipment. When we started working freshly post, like not freshly, but once, like, after I was cleared and everything, I think at 3 or 3.5 months postpartum, I started working back with Megan. She made sure that my workouts were quick, 20, 30 minutes max, because at the beginning, you're just so lost in this new role as a mom
Mhm.
that going to the gym for an hour or hour and a half is just not an option,
Yeah.
right? But 20-minute workout at home while the baby naps or even is on the mat and you can work next to them is great, right? So again, I sign up for a gym because I have one pass that like allows me to do various things, right? So I signed up to a gym close by. I kid you not, I maybe went twice because when I add the time to drive there,
Yeah, totally.
go work out, add the time to drive back, and then I have my home gym that's not fancy at all. I have
Yeah.
dumbbells, I have barbell, I have a bench, and that's about it, right?
Yeah.
And Megan makes sure the plan works at
Yeah.
my tiny, tiny home gym. And it gives me such a comfort that you can it's not always easy to find 30 minutes or 40 minutes, but having that basic dumbbells at home
Yeah.
gives you that comfort that you can do a simple workout.
Absolutely. And like you have to find what works for you. And I always say, like, a perfect plan is only a perfect plan if it works. And like, sure, would maybe going to the gym for an hour and hitting these compound movements, like, would that work and be ideal? Like, of course, but you can't do it. So it's not going to work as good as your home gym 4 days a week, like always getting it will, right? So I'd rather you do what you can do. And so, yeah, I think that's a big thing too, as like, especially a busy mom is like even if you've worked out prior in a certain way and maybe that doesn't fit your life, like understanding that's not the only formula and we can find a new formula, right?
Yeah.
So I love that you shared that. Is there anything else you feel like we maybe didn't touch on that you feel called to share?
No, but if anyone is doubting, this is great choice for when you're pregnant.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. I think that's kind of becoming a little bit of our like we definitely have a good group of women like trying to get pregnant and part of that too is just because Megan's phenomenal at that. Coach Jess now, that's obviously been a big part of her life as she's just went through that herself. I still I can't relate. I mean, power to you guys. Like I always think of that. I'm like, it is hard for me to imagine like doing all I do now plus that. So there's no bigger super power to me than being a mom. So hats off to you, Anita, but you've absolutely crushed it. And I'm like really so proud of all that you've put in. So thanks so much for coming on the
Of
pod.
course. Yeah, my pleasure.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me or Aneta. I'm sure she would be happy to answer those. I'll post her Instagram in the show notes below. But thanks again for coming on. Thanks to everybody for listening, and we'll see you next week. Bye.